Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Pope, board-certified OBGYN and co-founder of Menopause. Welcome to Office Hours. This is a podcast where we talk about menopause, perimenopause, and other things that you should be talking to your doctor or healthcare professional about, but probably aren't. Come on in. No appointment needed. I have Michelle Stiff with me today. She's a women's health, fitness, and metabolism coach, teaching women how to reset their metabolism, shed stubborn inches, and regain confidence using a hormone-synced, flexible macro approach. Michelle's journey from struggling with yo-yo diet cycle that affected her fertility, she unfortunately went through multiple miscarriages, and she had to kind of figure out a better way even when medical care and doctors just couldn't help her. She's got a mind-body holistic approach, and she was able to rebalance her health, her hormones, and she's got 2 healthy boys now. She went on to found her company, Wellness Elevate, and create her signature program, the Metabolic Momentum Method, so that other women don't have to suffer. Michelle is truly gifted. She's a good friend of mine. We met when I was living in Malawi, and she and her husband were my husband and my personal trainers, and they did classes that, everybody in the community really loved to join, and she's become a really dear friend since then. So I'm so excited to have her here with us today. Welcome, Michelle. Thank you for your time.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for having me. I feel emotional just hearing that, like our history together. And I'm so honored to be here and to share.
Yeah, and Michelle is the best, and she runs all of this stuff virtually. So she's based in Florida now. She's not in Malawi anymore. But if you're wondering where her accent is from, that's that's where she
Is
gets her beautiful accent from. But she's in Florida now and does virtual work. So we're going to give you all information if you want to work with her as well. But today we're talking about women's health and their midlife. So
Yes, I feel like this is such a topic that all women at this point in life, have struggles around.
it's so true. And struggles is unfortunately the right word for it, because Michelle and I were just chatting. I've got so many patients that as they're going through perimenopause and menopause, they're asking me as their gynecologist, what can I do about my body changes and my weight changes and my nutrition? And honestly, that's a really tough one for me to answer. So I look to people like Michelle. So Michelle, is that where we should just start? Just kind of
Yes.
body changes and perimenopause?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I see that often as well, that women feel like these symptoms are controlling their life and they're confused because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they feel like they're, say, gaining weight or belly fat and having extra fatigue or weakness and brain fog. And it feels like things are off, but maybe their labs and things are actually showing, oh, well, things look relatively normal. So, what is the root cause of them not feeling as good at this point in life? And so, yeah, coming to their doctors with questions like, I haven't changed anything, but yet
Yeah.
things have changed in my body. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah. And the thing that I hear all the time is I exercise 5 times a week. I do this. I eat really well, but I'm still gaining the belly fat. I'm not a big proponent of like the weight loss medications, people who are really at risk for diabetes, metabolic syndrome, all of those things. Sure. But that's the thing that people are asking me for most frequently. But you tell
They're
me what you
looking for
think.
like a quick fix. And there
Yes.
just isn't. And we don't know like the long-term repercussions of taking that in someone where it's not medically necessary. And so I
Yeah.
really think that taking a holistic approach and getting to the root cause of what is the reason for the hormone balance, because hormone disruption is really not a root cause. It is a byproduct of some sort of dysfunction in the systems of the body. So it's kind of like if we were to have a massive boat that has a hole in it, or a massive hole in the boat, and we're trying to like scoop it out with a tiny Dixie cup, is not going to be effective,
Yeah.
rather than getting to the root cause of why there is that hormone imbalance to begin with. And it's usually some sort of system disruption, right, that happens. And
Yeah.
stress is a huge one. And as we go
Mm.
through perimenopause into menopause and postmenopause, we're losing our estrogen and progesterone, which is kind of like our suit of armor and our shield against stress to buffer us. And naturally, it has to decline. That's part of the aging process. But in that, there's more anxiety, there's more sleep issues, and we have the most cortisol receptors in our belly area. So you've mentioned the belly fat. So when we're stressed
Yeah.
out, that's the first place that it goes to. So we have to
Yeah.
tackle it from a like mind, body, soul, like approach to figure out what's going on with that unique individual.
Right. So where do you start with people? How do you help them? And I mentioned that some of my patients say that they work out 5 times a day, they eat well and all of that. And some people
Mhm.
have never worked out before, right? And then
Yes.
they're still frustrated about these body changes. So how do you meet people? How do you get started?
And I always say that we have a female superpower because we do have these hormonal fluctuations and we're kind of like four different bodies throughout the month and we go through different phases of life much more than men. Like especially if we get pregnant, so we've got pregnancy, we've got postpartum, we've got perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. Men don't go through those phases the way we do. And we really haven't been studied as extensively as men have. So a lot of the generic fitness and diet programs out there are geared towards young men or athletes. And we're
That's
not,
so
right? Like
interesting.
women aren't just small men. We don't need to do the same
Yeah.
thing that men are doing. And we need to take into account those hormone fluctuations and the different phases that we go through throughout life as well. And really try to manage and mitigate that so we can feel our best. So as you've mentioned, every woman's unique. So I might have a woman coming to me who's been eating 900 calories a day, where her maintenance should be maybe around 2000. And she's
Yeah.
doing CrossFit or Orange Theory, a lot of like high intensity
High
cardio.
intensity.
She's sleeping
Okay.
4 hours a night, and her body is absolutely stressed out. And we have to
Yeah.
work to heal her metabolism because that is the root cause of, again, all of these imbalances. By
Yeah.
contrast, we might have a woman who never works out at all, but she's still stressed out. Maybe she's overeating or eating a lot of processed foods. So she's almost malnourished, but not on a macro level, on a micronutrient level, because the food she's
Okay.
eating is just not that nutritious. So, she's struggling with other stresses because it's not balanced. It's almost like finding the Goldilocks for each
Yeah.
woman, that sweet spot between what's effective and enjoyable and what you can integrate into your life and sustain. I call it a discovery phase to figure out where that woman's metabolism sits, what is her lifestyle, what are the obstacles, and how can we weave it in a way that just feels good.
You describe the 2 different women, like, I've been both of those women at different times of my
Yeah,
life. It's so
yeah.
interesting to think of it that way.
Yeah, and
Um,
you can swing between the restriction and then the kind of effort mode and going into just like, I don't care, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, and oscillating between them. There is like kind of 50 shades of gray in there that we need to find, or that
right.
happy balance in between, which most
Yeah.
women struggle to find.
And you're totally right that they influence one another, right? Like, I know when I haven't slept well, I am just craving the sugars and the carbs and things that, like, make me feel more awake for that minute to, like, get through that minute, but then I feel like crap later.
Because your blood sugar is on a roller coaster at that point, right? It's spiking and dipping.
Right.
And yeah. And so blood sugar dysregulation actually can cause a lot of other hormone imbalances as well. So that can be a root
Yeah.
cause that we need to address with a lot of women. And if you're stressed out and you're like starting your morning with just coffee and no food,
Yeah.
you're actually
Yeah.
increasing those stress hormones, leading to more dysregulation throughout the day as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. My mind is all over the place. I'm thinking like the nutrition side and the
Yeah.
physical activity. Why don't we start? Why don't we start with one of them? Which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, let's start with the nutrition because I think that piece in terms of really managing symptoms that we've talked about, nutrition is medicine. And it's
Yeah.
not universal in terms of like there is good and bad foods. Like I really don't like to moralize foods, but there are foods that obviously give us more nutrition and foods that give us less. But in our modern society, we tend to be eating, again, the convenience foods, the processed foods that our body isn't naturally meant to really digest and assimilate, right? So, on a cellular function, we can improve how our metabolism works by trying to think about foods that we could grow or kill and really focusing on those that don't have a ton
Yeah.
of packaging. And, if the label has 50 different ingredients in there and you can't pronounce them, it's probably not the best foods to eat. Not to say you can't have
Yeah.
any of that. I believe in the 80-20 rule. 80-20 meaning 80 whole natural foods that you can recognize from the
Okay.
earth, 20% fun
Okay.
foods and things that aren't necessarily super nutrient dense, but that we like to eat and are enjoyable, and ice cream and chocolate and wine or whatever
Cheese.
it is,
I
right?
hope
That
you're
we
going to say cheese.
cheese, absolutely cheese. I wouldn't even say cheese is a fun, but cheese might be in the 80% actually.
Okay.
And I think a lot of women, we have been on the yo-yo diet roller coaster where we've cut out a whole macronutrient, right? Like we've cut out
Right.
carbs, or we've gone super low fat. There was a low fat craze, in the 90s,
Right.
and where it was like, whoa, everything's fat free. These like candies, that's
Yeah.
just like
Eat
pure sugar, but
whatever you
it's fat
want.
free. Eat
Yeah.
as much as you want because it's no fat, right? But actually, physiologically, we have a need for all three of those macronutrients. Most women aren't eating nearly enough protein, which is really the building
Yeah.
block of the body. And when they're not eating enough, they're going to have more cravings. They're going to feel like they don't have the same energy. They're not going to be able to fuel their workouts in the same way. So, really prioritizing protein is huge. And obviously, fruits and veggies for fiber, especially as we age, and we can end up with, as you know, issues with
Yeah.
estrogen, either too high or too low. That can help to stabilize things as well as having enough fiber in the diet.
Oh, fiber is so important. I see so many women with issues with constipation, with
Digestive,
vaginal
yes.
issues that really source from their constipation, whether it's prolapse of the rectum kind of coming into the vagina like a rectocele, and they are just constipated
Yes.
and in pain.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
bearing
fiber is
down
so important.
causes, a lot of, so the fiber just really helps to flush everything out and make sure again that those ratios are good, and it's obviously good for our gut health, which is another root cause of hormone imbalances, when because our gut is, 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So if that's not
Yeah.
balanced and if it's not working well, then it leads to a lot of imbalances down the road as well.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a small wrench in your direction because I hear what you're saying, but I'm a terrible cook and I don't know, like I'm so bad at cooking. Like I would love
I'm
to be
with
a good
you.
cook, but
You know
honestly,
this.
like the grocery shopping, the organizing a recipe, like I could do surgery. Give me complex gynecological surgery. I will sit down and figure it out. But ask me to like make something from a recipe and organize it, like my head explodes. What do you feel like when you want to be healthy and you want to strive for this balanced diet? But okay, now where do I start? How do I make it?
And it doesn't have to be complicated. And we have so many strategies that we teach our clients. I'm not a meal prepper that would have all my meals prepped for a week. I can't function like that. But there are
Yeah,
ways that you can batch things. Like yesterday, I did a lot of ground turkey, right? And so I have a ton of that, and we can season it in different way. Like tonight, we're going to do spaghetti. We could do tacos, but I have all that meat there, and we just mix and match because
yeah,
I'm like a 15-minute,
okay,
let's get it done kind of person. The
yeah,
same thing, just
yeah,
rotating out some vegetables in there. A sheet pan meal, just put it in the oven and let it go, and don't
yeah.
have to really worry about with some seasonings and olive oil, right? It doesn't have to be very
Okay,
complicated, but once you kind of
don't overthink
understand of
it.
just, don't overthink it, and just get creative. I often use my like Instapot and have like a ton of shredded chicken that I can make in salads or different things, and again, just mixing and matching.
Nice.
And once you get
Okay.
into a rhythm, it doesn't have to be, if something has more than, I would say, 8 ingredients, I'm never going to do it. I would say like five or less and I'm good, right?
Yeah,
But for those who do enjoy it, they could get more elaborate. And I do have some clients that meal prep every single meal, and it just doesn't work for me. I can't
yeah.
manage that way. So I think it's, not
No,
overcomplicating it,
fair.
trying to find a system that works for you. And I think planning ahead,
Okay.
having a list, making sure you have the groceries on hand that you can quickly whip up something. And maybe you have a rotation of 5 different meals that are simple and easy to throw together in a pinch. That's your backup. So you're not ordering pizza at the last minute. And I mean, food now is expensive when you're eating out as well. I had a client saying that she
So true.
saves several $100s a month just because she implements what I'm teaching, and food isn't going to waste, and they're not going out to eat
Yeah.
randomly because she's not prepared.
Yeah. One of the things that you taught me when I was doing your course was during the pandemic, and
Yeah.
we had just moved back to the US and you had just moved back to the US and we were
Yeah.
doing a virtual course. You had said, like, put your vegetables, like, right in front of you
Yeah.
in the fridge. So when you open your fridge, like, that's what you see, and I can't remember if it was, like, on a rotating tray or what exactly it was, but that has been one thing that I have tried to, really implement, and I'll just buy, like, a veggie tray,
Yeah.
something that's
Veggie tray.
already made. I'm
And
just not
prep
going
it.
to
No.
cut all the vegetables and make it myself. But, buy a veggie tray and put it right in that middle shelf that, like, you opened up
Exactly.
the fridge and you see that. I love those sorts of
Absolutely. And
tips.
that's just like a reminder. Again, it's front and center, because if you're making like your candy bowl easily accessible, like on this desk here, that's going to be what I want to grab. Versus if you open the fridge and that's the first thing you see,
Exactly.
you're going to be reminded. And that really works with your brain brain, right? Training your brain and
Yeah.
getting in those new habits.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you just reminded me when I was a kid, we had neighbors who had kids my age and they had these little bowls of like M&Ms all around their house. And I thought it was like the
Oh.
coolest thing ever. And I remember complaining to my parents, like,
Why don't we
why don't we have sweets all over the house? But I'm actually really
exactly.
grateful that we
Yes.
didn't do that.
Yes, we can really set the stage. And when we think about our health, it doesn't just affect us, it affects everyone else.
Yeah.
And we're teaching our kids and those around us those habits, and they're going to benefit from it when we feel better. It's kind of like when we're putting our oxygen mask on first, we're able to then help other people because we're not passed out. So I think that
Yeah.
so often the women, we're stressed out, we've put ourselves last, we have just like our cup is empty. And so
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of the day, we really suffer for it. And what's so interesting, again, as we go through perimenopause and, like I've mentioned, into menopause, and we have less of those hormones that kind of buffer us against stress, is the
Yeah.
activities, the high intensity interval training and the CrossFits and the things like that that we could get away with in our 20s and 30s really start to change and cause more stress on the system. And exercise is a stress regardless, it's a good stress, but we need to
Yeah.
balance out that stress. And most women, if they are
Yeah.
cardio bunnies, really prioritizing that, shifting into doing resistance training so they can build
Yeah.
muscle is the only way we can build our base metabolism, is having more muscle on our body, which, by the way, we're losing every decade after 30 anyway. It's slow, but if
Wow.
you are not, like, I think it's after age 50, if you're not using it, you're losing it at a rapid rate, which is why you see
Right.
people into their 60s and 70s who've completely atrophied and are hunched over and they're breaking their bones in their hips and other things, because they haven't maintained it. It's their activity level has really decreased over time. And so, really
Yeah.
prioritizing most women, if they can just do 2 to 3, what we do with our clients, 2 to 3 full body workouts that are about 30 minutes. That's it. That's
Okay.
all they need to really maintain a good level of fitness, bone and heart health, all of those things to
Yeah.
build that lean tissue that is really what we need.
You think about the women who are in menopause, maybe more the menopausal generation right now, and sort of the fads that were around when they were in their 20s and 30s. And okay, Jane Fonda is a little bit older than that, but I remember
Yes.
like my mom doing Jane
Me
Fonda
too.
workouts and the
I want
aerobics.
to be when I grow up. Literally, I did
I
Jane
know.
Fonda and I was like,
Me too. I did Jane Fonda in our living room as a kid. I still love Jane Fonda for different reasons
yes.
now. Such a good role model. But that aerobics was
Yes.
what women really, really pushed, and not having too much muscle because you didn't
Yep.
want to look masculine. You didn't want to have big arms. Madonna kind of helped us a little bit to like show off her
She did.
amazing buff arms. But I do think there's a little bit of a shift that we have to make as well in terms of what we're trying to achieve from exercise, then influences how we go about it.
Absolutely. And I think that if we are looking at exercise as a way to just burn calories, that's really the wrong approach. Or I ate this chocolate
Right.
cake and I've got to go for a run now to burn it off is actually a very disordered way of looking at food and fitness. And so when we can start to separate them out and really realize that our fitness is for our longevity, again, for our bone health, our heart health, all of those things. And then the nutrition is how we're going to really fuel our body. And if we have weight loss to lose, that's where we need to focus. So, kind of separating them out. I've just found that for my clients, we all have this misconceived notions of what we need to do. It makes us not look forward to exercise, right? It's a punishment versus, wow, this is
Right.
something that is amazing for my body and what it can do for me.
Yeah. Right. So if you're in your 30s now and you're listening, you want to start working on the strength training, incorporating that
Absolutely.
into whatever other cardio you're working on. If you're in your 40s, you may want to start for the first time working on strength training. If you're in your
Absolutely.
50s, no, I mean,
Any
I
age.
could see how you would adapt it really, but like every age needs to do more strength training. This is not like big time weightlifting, right?
No, we're
Can
not
you
doing
kind
like
of like,
crazy Olympic lifting or anything like that.
right.
And honestly, in my program, so as you know, I also do virtual personal training as part of my program, which most online coaches don't include as part of that. So we have the nutrition side, we have actual one on one coaches guiding them
Yeah.
through exactly where their metabolism sits and kind of what phase of their journey. Because if they're in a fat loss phase, or maybe they're in a metabolic healing or a metabolic boost phase, or where they're at in the journey, that's all custom customized to the person. And then we also do the live workouts. I've actually got two that are 70 and had never weightlifted in their life, which is
Amazing.
incredible, right? And they loved it and they've
Yeah.
continued doing that and their whole bodies changed. And they really,
Yeah.
they didn't bulk up. They were like, wow, this, I feel just so much better in my skin. So it's never too late. And then by contrast, I've got women in their mid 30s who are very fit and active and have never had a weight problem. So at all these different levels that we can cater to the individual, modify or progress it as needed for what their body is capable of and their experience, but
Yeah.
also even hormonally. So, there are different phases if a woman's menstruating versus in menopause. Again, we're more
Yeah.
stress sensitive after menopause. So we need more rest, recovery, sleep, more like woo-saw type of thing, walking with,
Hmm.
a friend in the park, like fresh air, all the things that we can do to manage
Yeah.
stress is going to be even more important as you go through that transition. And in terms of like, if they do still have a cycle, I don't know any woman who on day one of her period wants to go do a heavy sort of HIIT training workout, high intensity or
Right.
super heavy lifting, right? We want to do more gentle things, go inward, maybe yoga or Pilates. And when you actually are able to phase your workouts like that with what's going on in your body, it allows for better recovery. You're not going to burn out, you're not going to get injured. And then long
Yeah.
term, your compliance is going to increase as well.
I love that. Okay, so moral of the story is we all need to work on our strength regardless of how
Absolutely.
how old we are. We all need a well-balanced diet and don't
Yes,
overthink it. And
absolutely.
as we go through perimenopause and menopause, we need to be aware of the stress and not push it so much. Like the crazy exercising may actually be detrimental and
Yes.
really just kind of focus in on the strength and the healthy aspects of lifestyle.
Yes, you
It's so
nailed
good.
it. Okay.
Thank you. I know we could talk probably for hours, and
Hours.
I would love to have you back on to talk about more things,
Love it.
but this is a really good start. I would encourage anyone who wants more information. Michelle is a wonderful person to work out with and to get information from. Like I said, I've personally worked out with her for years now, and to the
Yes.
point that now we're friends. And we will post all of her links and stuff in the show notes so that if you are interested,
Yes.
she does virtual. And you have clients in Korea, right? Like you've got people all
I
over the
do.
world.
I've got like
Hmm.
11 different time zones. So it's pretty amazing the reach now that I have online versus just doing it in Africa at our little
Yeah.
studio. But it's really lovely. And I do have that free gift that's really about crack your fat loss code and harness your hormones. So they can sign up for that and get that free guide. And I'm just literally
That's
here if
great.
they have any questions or to reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. And I also have a free Facebook community that they can join where I'm always doing free trainings and recipes and workout ideas and things like that. So I'd love them to pop in there and join us.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you all soon.